Hello everyone, my name is Alexander Ruiz and I am a current student at the University of California, Irvine, and I have been interning here at the Institute of Ayurvedic Medicine. Today we are going to be talking about mental health illnesses as well as Ayurveda, and with me I have an Ayurvedic doctor as well as a couple of Ayurvedic practitioners with me.
Hi, my name is Margaret. I'm one of the Ayurvedic practitioners here at IAM and the Sanctuary in Tustin.
Hello, my name is Ajita Patel. I'm an Ayurvedic doctor here at the Institute of Ayurvedic Medicine.
Hi, my name is Alex Corsand and I am a practitioner here, Ayurvedic practitioner. Studied under Dr. Patel and I'm here to answer some questions about Ayurveda and the effects of it on mental health.
Wonderful. And so before we really get started today, for the folks who are not familiar with Ayurveda, I was just curious if anyone could share a little bit more about its principles and a brief overview of what the practice is.
It's a spiritual medicine. It's ancient, comes from Vedic period in India, and it is the best way to describe it is as a preventative medicine. So it incorporates food as medicine, lifestyle practices, which if you follow them, then it keeps your digestion strong, your immune system strong, your vitality strong. In the event of an illness, we use herbs, we use appropriate foods, we use body therapies, aromatherapy. We have a lot of various ways of addressing that imbalance to support the body to heal itself. There are quite a few major concepts in Ayurveda that each person is unique, and so we need to understand that uniqueness, and that's done through the knowledge of elements and their qualities. Every treatment is personalized based on that unique understanding of that person, and we are always seeking to correct digestion, give them the tools to manage stress, as well as specific formulations if you need for their condition. But the understanding is that the body is going to heal itself if we support it. And a lot of different concepts are there and principles. They're very intuitive. For example, when you feel hot, then cooling qualities, bringing that in is going to help you, support you. The understanding that the digestion is at the core of health and disease. And so there's a really deep understanding of how food affects the mind and the body, as well as other things like yoga and meditation, all day self-care routines.
Thank you so much. It really sounds like Ayurveda encompasses a lot of holistic well-being, and I think you mentioned it being a preventative measure for health and well-being. So I think that's really wonderful because when we think about being sick or having to take care of ourselves, many people don't tend to realize that part of our health means taking care of ourselves before we get sick. So I really appreciate you including that in your response. And so the next question I had, if you could just tell me a little bit more about what doshas are and what their role in mental health might be.
Sure, doshas are Ayurveda's description of how the body is made, or how really everything is made. Everything in the universe is made of 5 elements. And Ayurveda categorizes these five elements by their qualities, and it brings out the information that is amazing to our daily lives and health. Everything is made of these 5 elements, and these 5 elements, because they have their own qualities, as they combine, they create these combined qualities. So doshas are Ayurveda's way of describing how a body is made in the case of human beings. And so the combination of these doshas, these elements rather, is what's called doshas. In the human body you have vata, pitta, and kapha. Vata is a combination of air and ether. Pitta is a combination of fire and water. And kapha is a combination of earth and water. And so because of the qualities of these individual um, items, rather, then the quality of these doshas will change. So for example, if you look at the kapha quality, kaphas are heavy, moist, because if you imagine what earth and water would do together, right? So it would create mud, right? So that not just shows up in the body as the constitution of an individual, but it also shows up in the mind. And so understanding a person's doshas would give an Ayurvedic doctor or a practitioner a way of being able to support that body and prescribe things such as foods or daily habits or lifestyles that would go along with those type of doshas. Does that explain?
Yeah, thank you. It really sounds like the doshas help us understand our own sense of being, and through this understanding, we're able to create sort of individualized action plans in order to better take an informed approach to our health and well-being.
Exactly, yes.
Awesome, thank you. And so my next question is, what are the implications of doshas on a mental health illness like depression?
So if you take depression, it can be kapha type, vata type, pitta type. There are many different ways of looking at that imbalance. We want to know what caused it, as well as how it presents, and then we want to balance that specific dosha. Most of the time, we think of that heavy, lethargic, very slow type of qualities that are associated with depression to be same as the excess kapha dosha. So in which case we want to stimulate, awaken, bring some heat, bring some movement. And we can do these things through all the various ways, the foods that we're eating, as well as aroma blends or colors of clothes that we wear, or the herbs, bringing those specific qualities. The other thing about depression and any mental imbalance is, yes, we take a good look at which doshas are out of balance or responsible for that particular condition, but we also look at the daily habits, and we can fine tune it then, and then say, okay, this oil, this treatment, this food for this individual. So there's a couple of ways of looking at it. There are aromas that are going to be uplifting and stimulating, right? And even then we can be specific for that individual. With certain things like maybe yoga postures, just doing them, regardless of your understanding of whether this is kapha type of depression or vata type of, just the fact that this person's getting up in the morning and doing some yoga is going to have immense benefit. So yes, it helps to know the specific dosha that's responsible for that depression, but in general, there are things that we can say if we bring in waking up at a certain before sunrise and following the daily rituals which we're going to today, eating mindfully, all of these things, going to bed on time.
Thank you so much. It sounds like there's definitely a lot of work that goes into Ayurveda and its approach to mental health illnesses. So yes, there is the importance of the doshas, but there's also a lot of other practices, the daily habits that someone has, the way that they wake up, the movement they have in their body. So it really is important that we take a holistic approach to the well-being of someone that we're trying to help. So thank you for that. And so my next question is, how does this compare to what anxiety looks like in terms of dosha constitution?
So, anxiety, again, we can say, so first of all, let's keep it simple. All dosha types can experience imbalances. Generally, though, we can say that vatas are more likely to have overwhelm and anxiety and insomnia. Kaphas are a little bit more resilient and a little bit more, a little less likely to have anxiety, but maybe more likely to have depression, right? However, having said that, all dosha types can have anxiety or depression. Generally, anxiety has the vata types of qualities, and also pitta when there's intensity and archetypes. And so, understanding that, okay, somebody has anxiety, let's balance vata. You're going to have a lot of tools available, bringing in all the opposite qualities to vata, and some abhyanga, some warm, nourishing foods, consistent routines, getting to bed on time. So all of these things are definitely going to help that vata individual become more, or that anxiety curtail it a little bit. The breath work is going to be really very effective and rather quickly to calm the nervous system down and gain control of those spiraling thoughts or anxiety.
Yeah, thank you so much. One thing that you mentioned was that based off the constitutions of the dosha that someone has, they might either be more likely to have something like anxiety or more resilient to it. So I think that adds another crucial layer to our understanding of our own well-being, because based off of our dosha constitution, we can take, again, these preventative measures to ensure that if we are more likely to experience symptoms like anxiety, that we can do things before we have these more severe symptoms in order to better take care of ourselves.
Exactly. That's really how it should be used, this knowledge. Knowing who I am, then I know the gifts, the strengths, and the challenges. And that leads me to another concept of like increasing like. So when those qualities come in through the changing of the seasons, for example, then we know that a pitta individual is going to be more likely to have excess aggravated pitta types of conditions, the anger, the rashes, the diarrhea, and so preventing that before the challenge arises is the best use of this knowledge. For the vata individual, the fall season is going to be a particular challenge. For the kapha individual, the spring season, winter and spring is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So yes, this helps us to understand our own health and what we can do to maintain balance, and it also helps us to understand other people around us. And so instead of taking things personally or being very judgmental or critical, we can say, well, this is who this person is, and so they thrive on routines, and when that routine isn't there, they are going to feel X, Y, and Z. It's not me that they're directing their imbalance with symptoms. It's a vata individual, kapha individual, pitta individual. They all have specific environment where they're going to thrive more. And knowing this helps in the family, in the work environment, in general, getting along with other people better, because now you know how to manage them.
That was a wonderful response. Thank you so much. And my next question is, based on everything we've said about Ayurveda and its approach to mental health illnesses, how does this differ from the Western view of clinical disorders?
Clinical disorders in terms of mental health or all general?
It can be either, so just the overlapping arch of what mental health disorders are.
So in terms of mental health, we aren't trained as psychotherapists, right? However, separate the mind, the health of the mind, and the health of the body. And as I said, it's a spiritual system of medicine. So all of these three components are interrelated, and we do look at how the foods are affecting our mind. We look at how our routines, habits are affecting us, our sense of well-being and self-esteem. So because of this understanding of the interconnectedness, we are going to look at cleaning up the diet and giving food guidelines and teaching individuals self-care in terms of the habits, morning routines, evening routines, habits around foods. I don't know how much of that is covered in Western psychotherapy, but in Ayurveda, we are going to look at the environment. And it's not that we are going to ignore the past, we are going to provide tools for that empower the individual to take responsibility for what's happening right now and how to create a better future. Right? We're also going to teach them things like self-massage, for example, that builds self-esteem, self-love, and self-awareness. We're going to teach them breath work that's also going to allow them to release and let go and be more calmer and gain better perspective. So, and then the ultimate thing that we provide is this connection, not just to themselves, but the highest within themselves, whether you call it soul or God or whatever you'd like to call it. But establishing that spiritual connection and that identity from away from the dramas and what happened to me and my stories and the failure in my relationships, diverting all of that into, well, I have a body, I have a mind, but I actually am this divine energy that's filled with unconditional love, that's pure, that's untouched and undisturbed by all of the stuff that has happened to me or is happening to me. So shifting this identity is key. And knowing that you are pure and beyond time and beyond space, knowing that this very subtle aspect of you is your source of strength, is your source of freedom, right? And when you access it, you feel peace, you feel love. This changes how you relate to people, how you react to circumstances. It allows you to forgive, it allows you to gain the strength that you need to face whatever, and it allows you to serve and be of service. And this is the biggest difference I feel, this spirituality. And we don't force it on people. It's as simple as teaching them to breathe slowly and deeply and with intention. Or it is eating mindfully. It is the self-massage. All of these things that we're doing throughout the day that is building and helping them evolve more and more spiritually. Right? And this then leads to that shift in identity. So now, the person doesn't go around being a victim, doesn't go around needing to be validated and needing all the time to be, the stories aren't constantly replaying in their heads. They come from a place of, I accept, I acknowledge, I release, I forgive, and I have freedom now to take care of me and to recreate a path for me that's more wholesome, that's more better serves me and makes best use of my strengths and gifts and lessons that I've learned. So it's a deep deep shift that happens with Ayurveda. And it doesn't necessarily happen through talk therapy. It happens through learning how the environment affects us, how food affects us. It happens through understanding how the universe is made up of these qualities, these elements, as well as the energies that affect the mind. The concept of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Very practical knowledge, which once you know, then you can choose that which is going to add to your clarity and confidence and joy. And now you can take steps to avoid the foods and habits and company and things that are going to cause you to be anxious or depressed or respond in unwholesome ways. So it's a big difference with how we address the mind. I haven't even begun to talk about yoga and how that is an incredible psychology, if you like, because we are working with the mind, the yoga philosophy. I'm not just talking about the breathing and stretching on the mat. I'm talking about the deep philosophy behind the yoga, that it slowly trains your mind to be very, very mindful, very joyful, very compassionate, very gentle, and builds that spiritual essence or identity. Breathwork, pranayama, is a direct way of affecting the mind, direct, immediate way, and so I'm very, very, very interested in spreading that knowledge to people because that's so easily accessible. Of course, we can use herbs instead of chemical drugs. We can use herbs to address mental imbalances, and they're not a band-aid. They strengthen the mind, or calm, or reduce inflammation, or awaken, or improve memory or focus. So there's these beautiful nervines that are adaptogenic, that are incredible. If we need to use them, they are there. How else do we address the mind? Changing the habits, helping people learn good, wholesome habits. That's what we're doing. We're teaching them how to be more disciplined, how to use their senses more appropriately. So in a way, we are addressing the health of the mind, even if somebody comes with a stomach issue or with arthritis. We are addressing their mind as well as the digestion. So it's a huge question. I don't know much about the Western understanding of and treatment of mental illness, but I know that everything we do in Ayurveda, yoga, is addressing mental health.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response. I think you did a wonderful job explaining how Ayurveda really, again, is this holistic approach to wellness. No matter what it is that we are helping a client with, whether it's them presenting with a stomach issue, what you do to address that concern is ultimately going to affect their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being. And another key point that I like that you brought up was the idea that Ayurveda helps individuals develop these skills to help them move forward. That really empowers them to, again, lead these happy, more successful lives. At the end of the day, when they're able to do that successfully, that can also rub off on the people in their environment, the people, whether it's their family, their friends. And I think that's a really beautiful aspect of this approach. So thank you.
Exactly.
Alright, and so the one topic that I really wanted to talk about today was dinacharya, or morning routines, and rajacharya, or bedtime routines. And so the question I have in regards to this topic is, why is it important that we habitually do these activities as opposed to doing them once or every once in a while?
That's a great question. Dinacharya and Rajacharya is really taking responsibility for your own health. You could go to doctor, see practitioners, take pills, take herbs, eat, different diets, keep changing your diets, and try to put Band-Aid on what seems to be the problem that you're dealing with. What Ayurveda teaches us is once you understand who you are, and Dr. Patel just mentioned that a few times in her talk, is that understanding who you are gives you great power, it gives you an ability to be responsible rather than a victim. You could say the environment did this, the fast food did this, whatever did this, and those experiences that I had did this. So you can have all these problems that you think has come from somewhere else. Ayurveda teaches us that everything is within us. So what you're projecting on the outside world is really coming from inside. So therefore, if you can concentrate on you through different practices, such as yoga, meditation, dinacharya, ritucharyas, which are really daily habits, ritucharyas and dinacharyas, daily habits, once throughout the day and once the nighttime routines. The responsibility part of it, and I can tell you about the different aspects, what are the things that you could do, which I'm going to elaborate in a second, but what's really most important is understanding why are you doing it. Because you're taking responsibility for your own health, for your own well-being. And you will notice that once you start working on you and taking responsibility on you, then everything around you changes. Literally, people call it manifestation, or you can use different words to address it. But really all it is you taking responsibility for you. That regardless of where you live, what kind of life you've had, what type of environment were you raised in, you are responsible for you. And once you recognize that, then you start practicing certain things. It's very easy to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, watch TVs all night, and wake up at 10 a.m. or whatever. You got to go to work, rush to work, and have this cup of coffee that you're having, and stress throughout the day. Come home, have some fast food or some frozen food, and then watch some more TV or alcohol or in some cases other substances, and go to bed. And then the next day, and then the next day. And then eventually you will notice one morning that you're tired of this. This is not working out. And therefore, what you go see a doctor and you get, labeled this type of depression or that type of anxiety, and here you go again. But none of that is necessary. Once you understand your doshas, once you recognize who you are, where you've come from, what is this human being, the body that you're in, then you recognize that there are certain things that you could do. That science is now proving that waking up early by the time the sun comes up or right before the sun comes up, people who do that seem to be more energetic throughout the day than people who sleep late. They're always tired, they're always drowsy, they're always lingering, they're sluggish. Dinacharya is what do you do from the time you wake up. There's certain habits. And how do you nourish the body, right? So waking up early with the sun, greeting the sun, just understanding that the life that you have on this earth really wouldn't have been possible without the sun. So to recognize that and offer gratitude to the sun first thing in the morning when you wake up gives you amazing energy and power, right? Then noticing the body as we've talked about this in this talk, is body creates ama, which is toxins, and these toxins end up on the digestive. First, they show up on your digestive system, and they actually show up on your tongue. So when you go see an Ayurveda practitioner or an Ayurveda doctor, the first thing they ask you to do is stick out your tongue so they can look at it. Because by looking at the tongue, they could tell which part of the body is really needing help, right? So one of the easiest things to do early in the morning is when you first wake up, before you do anything else, you scrape your tongue. You get rid of some of this aroma that's been built up, right? That causes the tongue to be, the mouth actually be more fresh, right? I mean, practicing that a few days, you really get addicted to it. That's the first thing you do first thing in the morning. Then you drink some hot water, cleaning out the rest, and allowing this body to start the day on a right foot on the digestive system. Things such as nausea, which is an oil that you use inside your nostrils, and there's a certain technique that you do it the right way. And these oil, as simple as it is, this would take a couple of minutes to really do every morning. What it ends up causing is it cleans out the buildup of the mucus inside the nostrils, and it actually kind of, in a way, massages the mind, the upper part of the nostrils, which is really like the lower part of the brain. And so it reduces stress. And science is not showing this stuff. They're practicing certain tests of these things, and they're seeing that this knowledge that's over 6,000 years old actually really works, and people who are practicing these things are seeing significant differences in their health. Another one that I can tell you about Abhyanga is about the research is oil pulling. Depending on if you're Vata, Kapha, or Pitta, you can use sesame oil or coconut oil, and you basically just put it in your mouth a little bit, and you kind of like swish, and keep it in your mouth for a few minutes. Initially, it's not as comfortable because you're not used to this, but once you get comfortable with it, you notice that when you go to the doctor, to the dentist, they say, wow, what did you do? Look at your gum health, look at what's going on in your mouth, so you don't have as many problems with your teeth. Is because it pulls away the toxins and the microbes in the gums and in the tongue and in the mouth, and you spit that out. Obviously you don't want to do it somewhere that your plumbing ends up having problems down the line. But that by itself, doing it on a regular basis, causes major difference to a person's body. Eating the right things in the morning, meditating, if you can, sit a few minutes and meditate before you start your day. Do some pranayama, do some breathing techniques, depending on your body and what are the things that you're trying to address. Intentional breathing, like Dr. Patel was talking about, is amazing difference than actually just, if you notice sometimes that you're busy, you're walking around doing your daily things, and you notice that you haven't been reading. Although you are, but they're very tiny air intakes. So if you do this intentionally, it makes a big difference. It helps your heart, it helps your circulation of the blood in the body, with many, many other factors that it takes really a long time to describe. So dinacharyas are your daily habits, the things that you do every day, no matter what. And understanding what these are and continuing these practices within a short period of time has amazing effects on the health, on the mind. We were talking about anxiety or depression. All is affected through these types of things. Rituacharyas, on the other hand, are the things you do before you go to bed, right? So you don't stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, right? You don't watch a murder show on TV and then go right to bed. Or a lot of people keep the TV on and actually have those images in their mind as they're sleeping, and then they have these nightmares, and they have these problems the next day, and they wonder where does that come from? Because the mind doesn't know the difference between reality or a show. The mind sees what it sees, and it records it as it is, and it analyzes it as it is. So literature, one of the literature is that you eat early, preferably about 3 hours before you go to bed. What is really normal, depending on what Pitta or Kapha body types, what type of food you eat, how much you eat, varies from person to person. But basically, generally, you eat very early. You make sure that you calm down, you relax, you get into a, end of the day mode. Maybe do some journal writing, a little bit of meditation. Once again, maybe some pranayama, some breath work. Some people who have trouble sleeping, we recommend that they do yoga nidra, which is a certain type of yoga that just totally calms the mind, right? Also very highly recommended that as often as you can, we recommend maybe 2 or 3 times a day, do oil massages to your own body. And once again, depending on whether or not you're Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, there's different types of oil. But generally, when you do that and you start massaging your body with a little bit warm oil, starting from your feet and work on your way up, every muscle, every bone in the body feels it. This oil actually gets inside and it absorbs other oils that have toxins or viruses or microbes or things that may not be as well working for your body. So this is really what Dinacharya and Ritracharya is, our daily habits, morning and day. And if you do them, you will get addicted to it. That you will know that you all of a sudden when you go and have your physical, everything is looking so awesome and great that the doctors are going to ask you, what did you do? Makes a big difference. It really makes a huge difference to how you feel, both mentally and physically.
Thank you for your response. I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned how it really is up to the individual to understand that it's up to them to take care of their own health and well-being and do practices, whether it's at the morning or at the end of the day. Even though they may seem small at first, the overall cumulative effects of these practices are going to be much larger than the sum of their parts. And as you mentioned, going to your physical, going to the doctor for your checkup, they're gonna themselves see the drastic impacts that these daily lifestyle habits have created in your life. And I think that's such a wonderful aspect for everyone to really partake in, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own health, and it's wonderful that there are tools that exist so that you can take care of your health. So thank you.
Exactly.
Okay. And my next question is, how do these practices improve the lives of those who have a tendency to sleep too much or too little as a result of mental illness?
Well, once again, that really addresses the doshas of an individual. And what these habits really do is, when you wake up early in the morning, when you talk about doshas, the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, this also is in nature. So the time between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., and 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., this is all divided up into Vata, Pitta, Kapha, actually Kapha, Pitta, Vata. And so when you sleep late, for example, you are, instead of waking up when your body is ready to get started, you're missing that time frame, and you're waking up when your body is ready. Between 10 and 2, for example, is Pitta time. It's high energy time. This is when you're most active. This is when your body is digesting really well, and that's when Ayurveda recommends for you to eat lunch, the biggest meal of the day. And so you miss that time frame, you miss that cycle, and then you carry that throughout the day with you. That's why we recommend that you don't sleep too late, because once the sun goes down, is really what nature is telling you it's time to sleep. So maybe you don't do it right away. And actually, if you go to some of the ancient cultures where people don't have as much availability of all the stuff that we have in our lives, you know, the technologies that we use, that they really don't even use light when the sun goes down, and they allow the body's time clock to respond to what nature is meaning for it to do. Also, same as eating the right type of foods within season. This is all really the same thing, is because you are paying attention to the cycles that nature has and living with those cycles, because those cycles are also in your body.
Yeah, thank you for your response. I think it's really important for people to understand that these morning and nighttime practices are really so important, because when we throw ourselves out of balance, when we go to sleep late or we wake up at the middle of the day, we're really throwing ourselves out of balance for a very long time. Waking up in the middle of the day isn't recommended, because that way we're not sleeping early. And when we're continuously doing that, it revolves into a cycle that can ultimately be very detrimental to our health. So I appreciate you for mentioning that. And my next topic is in regards to meditation, pranayama, and yoga. And the question I have now is, what is the meditation process of someone who might be dealing with depressive or anxious symptoms as opposed to someone who isn't?
That's also a great question. What meditation really is meditation is one of the legs of yoga. Yoga, there's 8 legs to yoga. One of them is meditation, another one is pranayama, which is the breath work. They each have their own effects on the body and on the mind. Meditation is simply quieting the mind, because generally, when you look at the root cause of depression or anxiety, is because the mind is always working. And that's why, you know, in some cases they call it the crazy monkey, because it's always trying to jump from one branch to another. It thinks about this, and then it thinks about that, and then it causes anxiety, because now you're thinking about something in the future that you're actually creating scenarios in your head, or you go way back in the past and you start looking at all these things that you would have wanted to do different, and this person that said this, or that, you know, that other that did that. What meditation does is it helps you practice staying in the here and now. Once you recognize that nothing happens outside of the now, everything that is in the past is stored in some cell in the brain, which is really a bunch of atoms and electrons, right? It's stored there, and the only reason you remember it is because you want to, or has made some kind of dramatic effect on your mind that you've remembered it. So that could be one of the reasons that you're always anxious, is because you're thinking about the past. Or then you look at, oh my God, I did this with so-and-so, and so how am I going to do this when I see him again, or how am I going to act? So now you go to the future, or what happens if this happens, or what happens if that happens. You create these scenarios. Actually, you don't, your mind does. You don't recognize your mind is doing this automatically, is because this is, you know, how you lived or how you were taught. What meditation does is it calms you down, allows you to be in the moment by several techniques. There's several different meditations. For example, focusing on the breath, allowing the breath to come and go. What that does is that keeps you in the now. There's some meditations that work based on repeating a mantra or listening to some sound. All of these is to distract the mind from using the senses, because the mind gets its information from the senses, from the eyes, from the ears, from your tongue talking, smell, and touch, right? So what you do really is you don't use the senses anymore. You just simply allow the mind to focus on the breath in and the breath out. And that just calms it. You talk about calming techniques for anxiety or depression. In a short period of time, a person that practices pranayama, meditation, or even yoga, they would see that their entire, you should say existence, because it's the body and the mind, shifts, because you no longer live in the past, you don't live in the future. There's the yoga practices that is just like Dr. Patel mentioned earlier, is not just about moving your body, but it's understanding the philosophy of yoga. Yoga means unity. You become united with yourself. You recognize that you're not just this body anymore. You recognize that you're connected to everything else. And that is a calming effect on the mind, because you no longer are a victim of anything. You understand how stuff works. You understand that being a part of everything, this is your experience. So you experience it rather than fighting it. You recognize that by doing certain breath works, for example, you can control your glands. You can actually reduce not just your stress, but your heart rate. You can have a better flow of energy throughout the body. What we call prana is the energy that comes through the body, and that's really what nourishes us. And a lot of these things that we do and the stuff that we eat and the lifestyles that we have reduces the amount of product that comes in, and then it creates what's a reduction in ojas, which is what the life source is. And so when you practice these things, you're increasing the ojas, you're bringing in more prana, you're allowing your natural self, your natural body, to rejuvenate and come out. And there's so many different techniques that we won't really have time to talk about right now. But the 8 limbs of yoga is really what this should be all about, is because you follow these practices and you will see in a short period of time, and once again, it really goes back to personal responsibility for your health.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the idea that through these meditative practices, right, we're able to stay grounded in the present, whether it's through like anxiety, where we're constantly thinking about the future and what might go wrong, or something like depression, where we're maybe thinking back on our past and the difficulties we've experienced. Through meditative practices, we're better able to come back to the reality that we're currently living in, become grounded, and through that experience, we're better able to get more in tune with our natural state. And after our practice is done, we're better able to make informed decisions about how we can move forward with the rest of our day, or just make better decisions in general about our health and well-being.
Absolutely, you're very right.
Thank you. And my next question is, how does yoga, and specifically asana or postures, affect doshas and mental health?
Well, can I add something to the last question
Of course.
first, actually? So when we talk about the 8 limbs, in regards to these practices and their benefit on the mind, I think something that's really helpful and important to note is that they're designed sequentially. So rather than having to surf through the internet or like try out these random practices out of order, it's giving you from start to finish, very novice beginner, leading you all the way up into the end. And when you're able to engage with them in the proper order, one, it takes the stress out of like having to grasp for different tools and not know maybe if they're proper for you at that point in time. And it'll gradually build up that resilience and calmness in the mind and body. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about yoga is that it's linear and it's guiding you through start to finish when you're working with the 8 limbs. So.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for sharing that additional piece. I think it's really insightful and really helpful for anyone who's maybe trying to get into this new practice of better being able to take care of themselves. I know, at least personally for me, whenever you're trying something new in regards to your health or really anything, it can be stressful trying to determine at what point you're supposed to be starting or how to continue a practice. So the fact that something like yoga, right, it's a linear process that really allows you to support yourself from beginning to end. I think that's really helpful for people to understand so that they're more willing to engage in this practice to begin with, and then better able to implement it into their lives on a more consistent basis. So thank you.
And then with the asanas, they're connected to our chakra system. So each chakra is related to different energies, emotions, and the way we're positioning our body in those different asanas are going to be stimulating different organs and energy centers and acupressure points. So, and then that's reflected in the mind. So when you're moving through your practice, you're naturally like aligning those different energy centers as you move through it. So that's the best, most simple explanation.
Of course, thank you. Yeah, like you mentioned, through these various positions or asanas, postures, we're able to connect a little bit more intimately with the energy flowing within our body. And I think that's really important because, again, when we think about Ayurveda as a practice, it's really about encompassing a holistic approach to our wellness and well-being. So when we think about the physiological, that's also connected to the psychological. So being able to be more intimately in tune with the energy flowing within us allows us to ultimately have a more drastic impact on our well-being in a positive way. So thank you.
And one more thing to add to that too, you think of what's happening in the mind. So if it's more of like a vata situation, you're feeling ungrounded. Okay, so bringing in those asanas where you're on the floor, on the mat, connected to the earth. You think of pitta, fiery qualities, like maybe a little too critical or cranky that day. Bringing in slower, more cooling practices, not like a heated, hot, fast-paced yoga class. Working with them in that way can be really, really helpful too. So.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And my next question is, are there any pranayama methods used for different types of disorders or dosha imbalances?
There are many different pranayama techniques, breath techniques, that can be specifically designed for certain individuals with dosha imbalances. Depending on the person, right? We can say, let's do anulom vilom, the alternate nostril breathing, where you breathe through one nostril, exhale through the other. That can be very, 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 very good for anxiety, anger, hormonal imbalances, a lot of different vata or pitta types of conditions. And then we can even say specifically lunar, Chandra Vedan pranayama, just breathing in through the one nostril can also affect both the temperature of the mind, the emotions, the nervous system, all that. So yes, there are specific breathing techniques that we can bring in for longer periods. Generally, if we do all of them for brief periods, they're fine and beneficial. But for an individual, say with a lot of kapha type of issues, maybe the fogginess, brain fogginess, the lethargy, the heaviness, the sadness, things that we would associate with depression, say. For them, let's bring in Kapalbhati, you know, a longer stretch of that very intense focus on just exhalation, quick, short exhalations. Inhalations are passive. So this breath is considered a detoxifying breath. And it can be very detoxifying to the mind if we say, I'm throwing out my doubts, I'm throwing out my negativity, you know, if we can put some visuals to it, sure, it can also work on the mind. But even if we don't, just that technique is heating, it's stimulating, it's cleansing. So yes, we can bring in techniques like this. Brahmari, the bumblebee breath, is another one that's very good for anxiety or even depression. But we don't want to just always say, you've got this symptom, we'll give you this for it, right? It's a holistic, we're looking at everything. We're looking at what's the cause, what's the environment, the lifestyle, diet. We're looking at all of these things. And as part of that, in their breathwork practice, there might be more focus on one technique, for sure. We can use pranayama therapeutically like that. There's lots of studies done on pranayama now, improving, showing that benefits people with issues, memory issues, concentration, blood pressure, anxiety. So, but that's not the only solution. I hope you understand that it's part of a plan that gets this person taking full responsibility for things that they're doing throughout the day. It's not just, oh, I took this turmeric capsule, I did this one thing and I'm done. It's how we're teaching them how to live their life. We're teaching them how to nourish their, as Alex said, how to really nourish their mind and body well. So there are breathing techniques, there are specific yoga postures, there's specific foods, there's specific that we can bring in.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that you noted was that, again, these practices aren't meant to be taken as a one-size-fits-all type of measure, or something that as long as you do this one thing, you'll be perfectly fine. Again, it's a more holistic approach to wellness. And again, just like with something as pranayama or breathing exercises, it's important to understand what the practice is, incorporate what you think is best for yourself once you have that deepening understanding of who you are, and then again, supplement that with a lot of the other practices that Ayurveda includes, so that you're better able to take care of yourself as a collective rather than in one singular aspect of your health. So thank you.
And these things aren't to overwhelm you and say you've got to do all of these things all at once, that you learn them gradually, one at a time. Habits are difficult to change and learn. So you start with one or two, and then with the support of a practitioner, you gradually build up your tools.
Yeah, thank you for including that additional piece. Again, when you're thinking about incorporating these new habits, new practices in our lives, it can be overwhelming to say, there's so many things that I'm not doing. But when you're able to step outside that box and say, let me begin with one or two things, incorporate that into your life. Once you're able to do that consistently, then you can begin incorporating additional aspects to better improve your health and well-being. So I think that's, again, just really important to understand and to acknowledge that it isn't expected that you're going to be able to incorporate all of these pieces from the very beginning. So thank you.
And it really helps to work with somebody who can guide you to for you to understand yourself and the nature of the imbalance, and then learn the tools.
Yeah, thank you so much. One thing that you mentioned was that based off the constitutions of the dosha that someone has, they might either be more likely to have something like anxiety or more resilient to it. So I think that adds another crucial layer to our understanding of our own well-being, because based off of our dosha constitution, we can take, again, these preventative measures to ensure that if we are more likely to experience symptoms like anxiety, that we can do things before we have these more severe symptoms in order to better take care of ourselves. That was a wonderful response. Thank you so much. And my next question is, based off of everything we've said about Ayurveda and its approach to mental health illnesses, how does this differ from the Western view of clinical disorders? It can be either, so just the overlapping arch of what mental health disorders are. All right, and so the next topic I'd like to discuss today is in regards to Ayurveda body therapies. Specifically, which Ayurvedic body therapies would you suggest for addressing mental illnesses?
So there's a variety of body therapies that we use in Ayurveda. One of the most common for mental imbalances is Shirodhara. So it's a warm oil stream right on the forehead, third eye, and obviously that's working directly with the mind through that therapy, and depending on the dosha of the individual, what's going on, we can use different oils that are suitable for them in that therapy and incorporate different herbs as well. So there's a lot of different ways through that one therapy you can address different imbalances. Another one is Basti. So there's different parts of the body, but the one I want to mention in particular is the heart Basti. So it's warm medicated milk or oil that is put onto the heart space, and this can address different heavy emotions like grief and sadness. You know, you think of all the heart chakra related imbalances. You're working directly with those through that therapy, and you know, everything's connected, right? So if there's an imbalance in the mind, it's going to show up somewhere in the body, and vice versa. So through these therapies, you're working with both of those areas, both the body and the mind.
Yeah, thank you for that. Again, I know you mentioned again that when we're thinking about like these Ayurvedic body therapies, right? If we're having something in regards to like something that's connected to the heart chakra, so you mentioned the heart basti, the connections between the psychological and the physiological, or again vice versa. If we have something going on in our body, we can again address that in a way that again still addresses the psychological and vice versa. And you also mentioned that even within this realm of Ayurveda body therapies, there are different massage types or different methods, so that we can also make sure that we approach a client or someone who's coming to us for help in an informed manner, based off their individual like predispositions or characteristics based off the doshas. So thank you for that.
You know, I want to add that in some cases, panchakarma, which is a really deep cellular level detox, can really benefit, not just detox the body of physical toxins, but also emotional toxins, and provide an opportunity for the person to be rejuvenated, to let go, to start afresh. So I've seen that panchakarma benefits not only physical conditions, but has also impacted people with, going through a nervous breakdown, going through a lot of self-doubt, going through marital or any other conflict, inner conflict. So we can, in some cases, use that to panchakarma, besides the individual body therapies.
Yeah, thank you for adding that additional piece. And the next topic I wanted to talk about was in regards to herbs. So specifically, what role do herbs play in addressing well-being and mental health disorders?
They can be a good support. They're not the complete treatment, and again, it's customized to the individual, and if their diet is right, if they're taking the other measures for their routines, waking up, sleeping, and all that, then herbs can be another beneficial support. And we can bring in herbs like ashwagandha, shankapushpi, kotukola, brahmi, jatamamsi, kapikachu, shatavari. There's so many herbs that can affect both the physiology as well as the nervous system and the mind, to strengthen it, to calm it, to nourish it. And again, there's been quite a lot of research done on this. Unfortunately, we find that once the research comes out that turmeric and ashwagandha and things like that are great for stress, people start just taking them and think that's it. That's not, and we have to address the why. Why did we get out of balance? And until we correct those reasons, correct those habits, and learn to manage our time, energy in better ways, until then, the herbal formulations that are custom blended can be very good support for you. But having said that, we don't want you to take herbs forever, for a long time, because then obviously you're not doing something right? Your daily habits, your daily foods should be keeping you healthy and happy. And if you're not, then you need to change some of these things. Changes are hard and take time. Herbs can be a little bit faster. They're not going to be as immediate as medicines are, but they're not going to have the same side effects if they're carefully selected and appropriate for you. They're not going to be habit forming. Most of them are not going to be habit forming. We have one or two that can be. Again, we don't want it to be daily prescription for the rest of your life. That's not how herbal medicines should be used. We always are looking at ways to strengthen the mind so that it can work optimally. With just your life, how you're living your life, how your habits, your foods.
Can you mention something about the spices as well and the 6 tastes?
So we have, there's a huge science, you're right, thank you for reminding me, there's a huge science of how foods affect and why they affect your body and your mind. The science of the 6 tastes and how they specifically work on digestion and the different dhatus, the different systems in the body. It's quite fascinating, and we eat 3 to 5 meals a day. We should know the science of what foods are going to keep me nourished and beneficial for me and tasty, and what foods are going to cause harm. And besides this knowledge of the 6 tastes and their effects, immediate post-digestive effects, whether they're heating or cooling, besides all of this vast knowledge, we also have this understanding of whether a substance is going to agitate or over-agitate the mind, overstimulate. For example, alcohol, caffeine, right? We know this. But there are also other foods that do this. Then there are foods that are going to dull our mind, make us feel lethargic, and intuitively we know that these are canned, frozen, processed, adulterated foods, right? And then there are foods that are going to be more conducive for a more harmonious way of being, calmer, more joyful, more self-aware, more positive, enthusiastic. And so knowing that this substance that I'm going to eat or drink is going to strengthen one of these 3 in me, that's powerful. powerful. That now puts the freedom in your hands of choosing your thoughts, your emotions, based on what you're eating. So yeah, this is exciting. This is very exciting. It's not just eating for taste and eating according to the amount of protein and the carbs and we're not standard. We're not we are very individual, unique, but food, there's so much confusion around food, and herbs are food in a more concentrated way, right? So the spices are that also. You can take turmeric as a capsule, you can take turmeric as a tea or as a flavor, and its fresh form, in its powder form, as a spice. So many different ways you can take these herbs, but essentially they are foods. And so these herbs can be taken as teas, these herbs and spices, or they can be used in the food, but they can, and they can also affect the mind and the body. Some of these herbs and foods can be long-term. The turmeric, as an example, can be used, and it does have an accumulative effect, right? But something like ashwagandha or some of these other stronger herbs, we use therapeutically as needed to support, and they are, in my mind, a better option than some of the chemicals which the body doesn't know how to eliminate, and they do come with stronger side effects. There are many herbs that are going to benefit us. This doesn't mean that we take all of these herbs. We carefully select which ones are going to be the most beneficial for us, and synergetically they work together really well in formulas that are specific for you. So individually you can talk a lot about these herbs, and there are studies done on these, and maybe later on we can do some more podcasts on diving deeper into them. But great addition to the tool bag. And again, you don't self-prescribe. Just because studies done on this one herb for depression, you don't go and order it on Amazon and start taking it. This is done under the supervision of an Ayurvedic practitioner or an Ayurvedic doctor, so that it's appropriate for you, so that you can digest it, absorb it, so that it does what it's supposed to do for you. It's not.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I think you mentioned a lot about what herbs are and how they can really make a impact on our health and well-being. But you also mentioned how even though these are a more maybe naturalistic way of tending to our health and well-being, it's not something that is again self-help. It's something that should be understood through the lens of a more professional manner, so that you're not just going to like a local grocery store picking out herbs like, oh, this one looks appealing, let me try this today. It's something a little bit more in depth. That's something that you have to understand so that you can more appropriately tend to your health and needs. And then another aspect that you touched upon that I really wanted to add on to was that the idea that these herbs, even though they can have somewhat of a more immediate effect than maybe something like a habit that you have that takes a bit more of a longer time for the effects to really show. These aren't to say that herbs are going to be your number one go-to for any concern you may have. That at the end of the day, herbs can play a more supplemental part in your health and well-being, but are not going to be a 100% resolution to all of your concerns. So thank you for that.
This is a lot of knowledge, and it may feel like a lot for the person who's hearing it for the first time. We feel that there's so much more that we need to share, and this is our ultimate goal, to educate as many people as we can on what is Ayurveda, how do we live this lifestyle, how do we prevent getting out of balance, how do we stay calm and happy and healthy, So the preventative aspect of it, I feel every single person should know about it. For example, tongue scraping. Everybody should be doing tongue scraping. It's so basic, right? So I feel everybody should know how to manage stress, how to cook their own meals, and what to eat and when and how. So yes, see an Ayurvedic practitioner when you're out of balance, when there's a condition that you need specific guidance on. But every person, no matter whether you're healthy, young, old, every person should know. Just like you know the make of the car, you should know the elements that make you up, and how to take care of yourself. So one day I hope this knowledge will be available just like yoga is now, finally, in schools, right? I hope this knowledge is available to high school children before they graduate, so that they do know how to take care of themselves and prevent getting ill. Until we get there, I hope whoever is listening to this or watching this will be inspired to come study. We have several courses available, and they're really transformative. Once you know yourself and know how to have the tools to take care of yourself, then it it's
Of course, thank you.
it's better. It helps everybody.
Of course, thank you.
It's better. It helps everybody.
Definitely, yeah, I appreciate this idea that this is something that everyone should really know about, the preventative aspects, something as simple as tongue scraping. Though we have discussed a lot of in-depth knowledge today, it's okay to maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed at first, but to not let that feeling discourage you from understanding this practice more, because just like anything in life, it's okay to start slow, to incorporate one or two things, and then continue to maintain these behaviors, because at the end of the day, we are trying to, again, share this knowledge so that we can ultimately help others better take care of themselves, and maybe that'll also encourage them to take care of the people around them. So, yeah. And that pretty much does it for today. So thank you everyone for coming and joining in on this conversation. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you. Affect and why they affect your body and your mind. The science of the 6 tastes and how they specifically work on digestion and the different dhatus, the different systems in the body. It's quite fascinating, and we eat 3 to 5 meals a day. We should know the science of what foods are going to keep me nourished and beneficial for me and tasty, and what foods are going to cause harm. And besides this knowledge of the 6 tastes and their effects, immediate post-digestive effects, or the heating or cooling, besides all of this vast knowledge, we also have this understanding of whether substances going to agitate or over-agitate the mind, overstimulate. For example, alcohol, caffeine, right? We know this. But there are also other foods that do this. Then there are foods that are going to dull our mind, make us feel lethargic, and intuitively we know that these are canned, frozen, processed, adulterated foods, right? And then there are foods that are going to be more conducive for a more harmonious way of being, calmer, more joyful, more self-aware, more positive, enthusiastic. And so knowing that this substance that I'm going to eat or drink is going to strengthen one of these 3 in me, that's powerful. That now puts the freedom in your hands of choosing your thoughts, your emotions, based on what you're eating. So yeah, this is exciting. This is very exciting. It's not just eating for taste. and eating according to the amount of protein and the carbs, and we're not standard, we're not, you know, we, we are very individual, unique, but food, there's so much confusion around food, and herbs are food in a more concentrated way, right? So the spices are that also. You can take turmeric as a capsule, you can take turmeric as a tea or as a flavor, in its fresh form, in its powder form, as a spice. So many different ways you can take these herbs, but essentially they are foods. And so these herbs can be taken with as teas, these herbs and spices, or they can be used in the food. But they can, and they can also affect the mind and the body. Some of these herbs and foods can be long term. The turmeric is as an example, can be used, and it does have an accumulative effect, right? But something like ashwagandha or some of these other stronger herbs, we use therapeutically as needed to support, and they are, in my mind, a better option than some of the chemicals which the body doesn't know really how to eliminate, and they do come with stronger side effects. There are many herbs that are going to benefit us. This doesn't mean that we take, you know, all of these herbs. We carefully select which ones are going to be the most beneficial for us, and synergetically they work together really well in formulas that are specific for you. So individually you can talk a lot about these herbs, and there are studies done on these, and maybe later on we can do some more podcasts on diving deeper into them. But great addition to the tool bag. And again, you don't self-prescribe. Just because studies done on this one herb for depression, you don't go and order it on lump-sum and start taking it. This is done under the supervision of an Ayurvedic practitioner or an Ayurvedic doctor, so that it's appropriate for you, so that you can digest it, absorb it, so that it does what it's supposed to do for you. So it's not self-help, it's especially with herbs.
Yeah, thank you for that response. I think you mentioned a lot about what herbs are and how they can really make a impact on our health and well-being. But you also mentioned how even though these are a more maybe naturalistic way of tending to our health and well-being, it's not something that is again self-help. It's something that should be understood through the lens of a more professional manner, so that you're not just going to like a local grocery store picking out herbs like, oh, this one looks appealing, let me try this today. It's something a little bit more in depth. That's something that you have to understand so that you can more appropriately tend to your health and needs. And then another aspect that you touched upon that I really wanted to add on to was that the idea that these herbs, even though they can have somewhat of a more immediate effect than maybe something like a habit that you have, that takes a bit more of a longer time for the effects to really show. These aren't to say that herbs are going to be your number one go-to for any concern you may have. That at the end of the day, herbs can play a more supplemental part in your health and well-being, but are not going to be a 100% resolution to all of your concerns. So thank you for that. Okay.
Is that it for us? I think it's just your questions.
Or
was there one more?
Yeah, I think from now it's just closing out, and then the additional questions for those who aren't here today. So. All right, well that pretty much does it for our talk today. Before we do conclude, I did want to ask if there was anything further you would want to share with anyone who may be listening to us today.
This is a lot of knowledge, and feel like a lot for the person who's hearing it for the first time, we feel that there's so much more that we need to share. And this is our ultimate goal, to educate as many people as we can on what is Ayurveda, how do we live this lifestyle, how do we prevent getting out of balance, how do we stay calm and happy and healthy. So the preventative aspect of it, I feel every single person should know about it. For example, tongue scraping. Everybody should be doing tongue scraping. It's so basic, right? So I feel everybody should know how to manage stress, how to cook their own meals, and what to eat and when and how. So yes, see an Ayurvedic practitioner when you're out of balance, when there's a condition that you need specific guidance on. But every person, no matter whether you're healthy, young, old, every person should know. Just like you know the make of the car, you should know the elements that make you up, and how to take care of yourself. So one day I hope this knowledge will be available just like yoga is now, finally, in schools, right? I hope this knowledge is available to high school children before they graduate, so that they do know how to take care of themselves and prevent getting ill. Until we get there, I hope whoever is listening to this or watching this will be inspired to come study. We have several courses available, and they're really transformative. Once you know yourself and know how to have the tools to take care of yourself, then it's
Of course, thank you.
it's better. It helps everybody.
Definitely, yeah. I appreciate this idea that this is something that everyone should really know about, the preventative aspects, something as simple as tongue scraping. Though we have discussed a lot of in-depth knowledge today, it's okay to maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed at first, but to not let that feeling discourage you from understanding this practice more, because just like anything in life, it's okay to start slow, to incorporate one or two things, and then continue to maintain these behaviors, because at the end of the day, we are trying to, again, share this knowledge so that we can ultimately help others better take care of themselves, and maybe that'll also encourage them to take care of the people around them. So, yeah. And that pretty much does it for today. So thank you everyone for coming and joining in on this conversation. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.